I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. But it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher.
Look where we are. Here, all of us, in this moment. So let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at.
And this is Crusher Convo. And welcome to Crusher Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. We are going to the very beginning of Star Trek with a fan favorite. And joining me is fellow Star Trek fan and podcaster Rick. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, first, I know I've watched some episodes of yours, and I mentioned about. I'm going to say what Robert Duncan McNeil said to you as well. Your intro is amazing.
Thank you.
I genuinely watching it, going like, "Oh my word, Crusher, she kicks ass. She's amazing."
The whole point. The whole point of this podcast. I'm just highlighting that.
I don't put that much effort into my stuff, so I love that you have, and I think it's amazing. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, I have I don't know if you want to call it I don't want to call it an obsession, but definitely something that I, love to showcase and express my love for a character. And especially, people who even bring up like Jadzia or Cisco or something like that. We all have our favorites, and it's always good to celebrate them. So that's the whole point of the podcast, right?
Couldn't agree more. I love that. Absolutely love it. Brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked hard on that intro, and it's always been like, everyone's all like dancing, like, because you're like, I'll see you in the green room and you're all like bopping it. It's awesome. I was like, all right, still going good. We're keeping it.
I used to do this thing, like, just going a little tangent here. During the pandemic, of course, I did that whole thing that stand-up comedians ended up doing during which was streaming, because there was no gigs, there was no live stuff we could do. So we all went onto Twitch and we all streamed. And obviously on Twitch is that whole concept of raiding, where you go raid another channel after you finish streaming and stuff like that. And I was told that consistently I had one of the best raid videos. I don't know if you're familiar, like in the UK, so there's an Australian soap called Neighbours, which is
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Huge in Australia, huge in the UK. Like, we love it in the UK. And during the 90s as well, it was like peak like viewing. And so I made a spoof of the intro of Neighbours, but me singing Raiders instead. And everyone was like, that's the best intro. I'm like, yes, I know. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And it didn't change for 3 years.
You know what? I had another fellow podcaster who does Green Shirt and Open Pike. And I had them for Beverly Crusher Day, and he decided, and they all got, like, I had different podcasters with like a certain top, one had a doctor, one had mother. So, just highlighting the best of Beverly. And he did an ER intro of Beverly Crusher. It is the best thing ever. I'm going to show it to you guys. I'm going to repost it again on social media. It will never die. It is the best thing ever. He did an amazing job. Cameron, love you. Good job. I call him the grandfather of Crusher Convo because he was kind of the inspiration for all this. So I was like, this is perfect. Yeah, it is beautiful.
Cannot wait to see it.
Before we get into more about Star Trek, I just want to jump in real fast and talk about the sponsors here. So if you use my code CrusherCombo6, you get 6% off your order at mycherrytree.com. And if you go over to fansets.com and use the code TrekGeeks, you can get 10% off of your order. Now, please follow them on the socials at Cherry Tree Incorporated and Fansets. Definitely wanted to do that real fast. So, Rick, I have a quick question for you. So, for the 60th anniversary, I'm asking, what female character do you find inspiring?
Oh, my word. That is such a great question. And there are the beauty of Star Trek is that there are so many to choose from. Thing is, though, I am a TNG boy through and through. That was my first Star Trek. That's what I remembered. And I would love to say Crusher because of the podcast. I'm actually going to say Deanna, right?
Nice.
And the reason I'm gonna say Deanna is because I think Deanna at the very beginning, at the very beginning of TNG, she was a very underused, poorly used character. But it was the moment where she actually goes from wearing the dresses and then gets to actually wear a uniform. That it's like, yep, there was that switch, and it was like, yep, you've become like proper kick-ass character from this point on. And then like when you can see it in those sort of that from that moment on, she does become a much stronger character. And I think in the movies as well, she's one of the highlights of like First Contact. I think she has some of the funniest moments in that film.
The drunk scene, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Brilliant.
But I think I love that her character is like, it goes through, and it's one that she's always like, I hate to say the word, but abused and used by others. But she always comes back and is always like, no, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep being strong, and ends up being, as I said, absolutely kick-ass. And then of course in Picard season 3, just brilliant. It's like she's got Riker under control at that point, which is like, yes.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, kudos to Jellicoe, because he's the one that put her in the outfit.
Yeah.
Okay, I know everyone hates Jellicoe, and yes, he was a hard man to love, but he was being professional in the sense, hey, I really would like to see you in a uniform. But also, in defense of Deanna, she did not crash the ships. Okay, I will
no.
She did not crash in Generation. She did not crash in Nemesis. To say it.
I make the joke. I do make the joke, but she is the one. Like Generations, she levels it out. She is the one who actually levels it all out.
She saved everybody. Yes.
Yeah, yep. And she was only following orders in Nemesis.
Correct.
Which is so that was
yeah.
it. But the backstory as well, because the whole Jellicoe thing, like the uniform thing, is like, it was actually Marina Sirtis as well herself who was like, no, I need to start wearing a uniform now. And that's why they wrote it in that Jellicoe tells her to do, when actually it was Marina Sirtis herself was like, put me in a uniform. Like,
She's like, why am I still doing this? Like,
yeah. I'm a better character than this. It's like, yes, you are, Deanna. Yes,
I'm a counselor. I need to look the part. Yeah, I totally agree. But unfortunately, we're not talking about TNG today. We are going way back to 1966 with a fan favorite called Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Orders. Counter orders. Repeated urgent requests for information from the ship's computer records for anything concerning ESP and human beings.
Extrasensory perception? Dr. Dana, how are you on ESP?
In tests, I've taken my ESP rated rather high.
I'm asking what you know about ESP.
It is a fact that some people can sense future happenings, read the backs of playing cards and so on, but the ESPER capacity is always quite limited.
Okay, so here are the stats of that episode. So the air date was September 22nd, 1966. It was directed by James Goldstone, written by Samuel A. Peoples. The in-universe date was 1312.4 to 1313.8, which was, of course, in 2265. Now, this is where the confusion hits, guys. I had written that this was the series premiere. It is not. That is the Man Trap. However, it was produced first, after The Cage, obviously, but it was released third. And what's hilarious is that I'm watching this, and again, I went down a rabbit hole. So this is literally how it was produced in order, which is why it says episode 1-1. Hence the confusion. But if you really actually go back and you watch them in the order, it makes more sense than what we see, because like the Man Trap had McCoy, this episode does not. It's different, different outfits, all of that stuff. It's just a little bit different. And I feel also Spock was like a horrible, angry Vulcan, like we saw in Enterprise. But this is my confusion. So I was half right in the sense that it's one of the pilots-ish, but it definitely does feel like a pilot episode. So now, when did you get into Star Trek? Was it because of TOS? You did mention TNG, and that's your jam. But did you start with TNG and then go back? Like, how did this enter?
Really good. So interestingly, TNG is like my Star Trek, the one that I grew up with. I actually remember the first introduction to Star Trek for me were the movies, the TOS movies, the original series movies. Especially, always stuck in my mind was the Voyage Home. They always seemed to play the Voyage Home at Christmas time, so it sort of like stuck in me that was Star Trek's Christmas movie. So I always remember yeah, it feels like one. But so yeah, that was my introduction. Like I was the original series crew, so I was very aware of them growing up. And then obviously when TNG came out, I was watching that going, oh my word, I love these characters. But yeah, I was very familiar with sort of Spock and Kirk and McCoy and all of that. And I remember sort of going back eventually and watching the original series when I got the chance. And it's thinking, this is very different from the Next Generation.
Right. Facts.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I started with TNG, right? And then I'm going back, I was like, it's showing its age, right? It's the 60s.
Yeah.
You know, what cracked me up in this episode is that when Gary Mitchell had already gotten, I guess we can call it possession, guys. That's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
But they have the box and like he's reading something and he turns it off and you still see the writing. So it's just a light box, right? And I'm like, you're limited, it's fine. But, you know, you notice those things compared to what we got with the Next Generation, you know. But yeah,
you say that. What I love is that the thing that seems to be different between the Next Generation and the original series is that in the original series, the computers are made of wires and cardboard, and then for some reason in the Next Generation, they're made of rocks. Every time the console explodes, it's just rocks everywhere. You're like, how is this happening?
That's true. There was a lot of explosion in this episode. I'm watching. I was like, fire! Oh my gosh, another explosion. This was interesting because I thought I saw this episode, maybe because I've seen so many clips and I've heard, you know, I'm not jokingly from It's Got Star Trek because they play that a lot of their podcasts, but I don't think I did. I don't remember the ending, and I also got to defend myself. I watched The Center Seat like I love The Center Seat. The documentary is my favorite of all. Yeah. And this is where I got confused.
Find out what the T stood for until much later.
There'll be no discussion of this.
Evidently, NBC wanted the T to stand for tough.
They wanted something a little more action-oriented.
So Star Trek started to get physical, like the Olympics.
And then NBC said, we love it.
With boxing, karate, wrestling, and possibly shot put. And one of the lesser-known sports.
The Vulcan neck pinch was Leonard Nimoy's creation.
So they showed this episode where No Man Has Gone Before, not really The Man Trap, not really Charlie X, because that was the second one. It was this one, and it felt like a pilot.
Yes.
You know, but there was that whole thing, like we kind of saw in Enterprise, they kind of went towards the unknown, not sure what to expect. You know, being very careful. He automatically was like, they didn't say red alert, but it was like, you know, condition alert or something like that to just be cautious of what might happen. And then there was a story, right? They mentioned the ESP of her and then tracking that down. So I think this is actually better than The Man Trap when it comes to a pilot.
I think it's interesting because I think this movie was this episode was a direct response to the Cage. So one of the criticisms of the Cage was that it was too cerebral, too thinky, too much sort of the audience was required to do too much thinking essentially. Right. So this one comes around and it's more action based. Like, yes, there is still this sort of exploration of space, but ultimately it does come down to a punching match between Gary Mitchell and Kirk to save the day. So I do find that quite interesting as well. Like, it does feel like a pilot for a very different Star Trek and it's very different from the pilot that we initially got.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And what I did find interesting too is just like I saw Sulu was in like astro sciences or something like that, different doctor. And I was like, this is the third episode. And it was just so flipped, but it still worked because it still made you think. It still, you know, you were paying attention, trying to see what happened next. And it also had that aspect of emotion because he knew Gary since the academy days. You know, they did bring in this psychiatrist to come in and kind of play the neutral person, right? She was trying to be like, no, he's fine, but then she's starting to notice that maybe he's not. And of course, Spock was just being a total jerk until the very end. But he had his reasons, you know. One thing that did stand out to me that really felt like a pilot versus anything else was the fact that he had mentioned when they were doing the 3D chess, he goes, my ancestor married a human female, which then Kirk made the joke of like, oh yeah, you're bad blood. And I was like, but that was his dad. That wasn't an ancestor.
Yeah.
So it changed, right? Like in between episodes, well, they're like, let's make it his father. He's half. Like, I don't know if that was ever mentioned in the cage, or it definitely wasn't mentioned in this episode that he was half. So
yeah, I don't remember it being mentioned in the
quickly it
cage.
changed.
Yeah. It's
so.
quite interesting, sort of like, and this is like the standard of like, TNG era, 90s era. And if you look at DS9 and sort of moving forward, especially today's television landscape, television shows are, you have your characters, their backstories are written before the show starts, because you're going to tell their backstory and it's all in one long arc. And I think what's interesting is like, if you go back to that era, and you think about the Twilight Zone, for example, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Mission Impossible, these were all written to be sort of standalone episodes. Yes, the characters you might have the same characters in several episodes and stuff like that. What made Star Trek different, though, is that it was one of the first ones that the ensemble cast kind of did stay the same from episode to episode. There wasn't a huge amount. Like, as I said, I just bring up again, Twilight Zone, Mission Impossible was a really good, and Mission Impossible was a good example because obviously Nimoy was in that world as well. Different cast constantly, so on and so forth. So yeah, it's interesting. So I don't think they fully thought it through. I think they were like, yes, we're going to have these things, but I don't think they, in the same way, like in the way that Discovery was probably all pre-planned, like, as much as possible was pre-planned in terms of all these characters and stuff like that. I think like with the original series, it was like, okay, this is Kirk, this is his main things, and then we'll flesh him out as it goes on. And likewise Spock. And I don't really remember, like, it is interesting as you mentioned, like in this one, an ancestor married a human. I was like, well, no, it's you. We know it's you. We know it's going to be you. What point that was decided, I can't remember. And I can't remember it being in the cage. I do remember reading about like the initial makeup tests for Spock having to be toned down a lot because he came out on the black and white TVs looking like the devil, which they were like, yeah, we can't have that in Christian states. So yeah, it was interesting. Like, and so you get like, he does look a lot more. I mean, that's the thing as well. In this one, he looks a lot more toned down from the cage, with his ears are a lot more, a lot less pointy than they were if you watch the cage, where they're a lot more pronounced. But yeah, it's an interesting one where they haven't really got a grasp of anything yet in this one. But I think it might be just sort of a result of the writing style, how they did television back then, more than anything else. Does that make sense? I think so.
Oh, absolutely. No, yeah. I mean, we saw that in TNG.
Yeah.
Right? That we were, all the characters we were trying to still figure them out, even between Picard and Crusher and Riker and even Data, and just understanding who they were. And even the same for the actors. Like, there's really no direction that they're getting, right? They're just being like, play this character. Okay. I mean, Gates is the one that did the whole hypo spray in the neck, because she's like, what would be the worst place to put a shot? Aha, the neck. And now it's forever changed, right?
Right.
So I think for them, because they had to go from the cage. Now, Nimoy had, of course, an advantage because he was in the cage. But everyone else, it was like, we're going to figure this out. I think Kirk was also a little bit of a jerk. Because in the sense, like, he got that, whether she was a yeoman or ensign or something, but he went Jones and it was Smith. Like, he didn't know his crew's names. And I was like, I don't like that. And even in that clip I just put, what her name is, like Demmer or something like that.
Denner. Yeah.
Denner.
Like that.
And she is, when he was asked about ESP, she's all like, oh, my rates are like, my score is pretty high. And he's like, no, what about it? Like, and it's like, well, you weren't really clarifying the question, dude, so don't be a little snippy. I'm just saying. But he had this really emotional response when it came to Gary, and I don't know. again, as much as Gene's vision was very much, inclusive and different races and genders and all that stuff on the bridge and all this, there you still see the very misogynistic side of probably the writing, or just how, this was 66 and this is just how it was, unfortunately. But they were in the step of the right direction, right? But even Gary had that issue where he called her an ice box or something, and she even pointed that out. But kudos to her because she saved the day. So it was a woman that saved the day. So yay.
It's such a it's such an interesting thing with Star Trek. He calls her like a good-looking lady doctor, if I remember rightly, which is like, okay. And you go like, is that part of your character? Is this part of the writing? And it is an interesting thing with Yeoman Rand, Yeoman Smith, Yeoman Rand, it's Jones. It's like with the Yeomans, again, it's Star Trek original series. Like it's a progressive show. Yes, it is, without a shadow of a doubt, but it's still written in a time where they weren't the greatest to women or people of color or, whatever. So they can't help but still have these overtones of sexism and a little bit of racism and stuff like that. I mean, at least they're trying.
They're trying. I mean, Gene was progressive. The writers were not.
Yeah.
And I think that was why it was so important that he had David and DC, because they were very progressive in the sense that they were like, no, we're going this direction. And I mean, we didn't even have Uhura. I know Chekhov is until the second season, but we didn't have Uhura on the bridge.
No.
And it's just, again, you can't help but notice it when you're watching these episodes, especially because of how progressive the 90s Treks were and now.
Yes.
So as much as it was this is the beginning of all beginnings, it wasn't perfect.
But and this is always something that I always try to get across to people as well, is that being perfect shouldn't get in the way of trying to get the message across. Sometimes if you spend all your time trying to be perfect, the message doesn't get delivered. We're going to make missteps. And in 20, 30, 40 years time, we'll look back on this era of Star Trek with its very progressive attitude and be like, oh, that doesn't age well. We look at TNG and DS9 and Voyager and go, yeah, some of the stuff in there has definitely not aged well. So definitely product of its time is a thing. And I think this does stand out as a product of this time, but yes, they are trying. And I think as well, if you look at the wider television landscape at that point as well, Star Trek did stand out as a show that was trying to be progressive. And this episode, that would be different. And this episode, for all its faults, it was, as you said, it was a female character, a woman who saved the day, which is not very well heard, not unheard of. It was, so it's a conflicting one.
For sure. And I also have to kind of give, some props, I guess you could say, to Shatner. Because again, he's being written this way. So he's reading this and he's like, okay, I'm going to be a jerk to her.
Exactly.
But even you kind of see him from the beginning to the end, the character being you could tell he was doing different things with the character to see what felt right. And see where he wanted Kirk to be like. And I mean, at the very end, I don't know if they did this on purpose with the writing, but in the sense that, he was a little snippy with, I think her name was Catherine, Denner. But then at the end, he's making sure that everyone acknowledges her sacrifice.
Yes.
So I think that was also very much of Gene's vision of like you said, no one's perfect, but at least we're learning. Exactly
that. And it's so funny. I have such a, as I said, I love the original series. There's so many standout episodes of the original series, and this is one of them. This is actually a very good pilot. Very, very good pilot. Very serviceable third episode. It's so weird. Like I don't understand why it's where it is. If they released it as the pilot, I think everything would be. But I do think the man trap is a stronger episode overall. But I think this is great. It's just so weird to see seeing it. But I think this is I enjoy this episode as one of the ones that I go back and go like, yeah, this is a very good episode of Star Trek. If you want to see what they were trying to do at the beginning, this one has it. And even though it is more action based than The Cage, for example, like the action doesn't feel out of place. The action feels earned. Like it feels like this is what has to happen. And what I love as well is that it's the two men scrapping it out. And it's like, nope, one comes in, saves. It's all the men can do is fight.
Right. I was actually looking at IMDb, and what's funny is that people actually rate this higher than the man trap.
That's interesting. I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but very close to The Cage. So out of, and of course this is like 8,000 votes. And of course it's very hard when people rate these things, because we also know about, people will rate things badly because they are being stupid, but whatever. But the Cage is 7.6, while Where No Man Has Gone Before is 7.7.
Okay.
And then the Man Trap is 7.2, and then Charlie X is 7. Which kind of makes sense that Charlie X would be so low, just because I just saw him as a bratty little boy. And then The Naked Time, though, was a 7.8, which is hilarious to me. But they're all in the sevens, except for Mud's Women. That's 6.7. Everyone's like, F that. Like,
well, I mean, there's a good reason,
There's a good reason, They're just like, nope, we're not doing that. The one that got an 8, though, the first 8 was the Carbonite Maneuver.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is a phenomenal episode. So,
and I think in my list it was like what number? Let me see here. It was the second one ever. Well, after third, I guess, if you add The Cage, but without The Cage, it was the second one.
Production number 3, which is it's incredible that they hit that so early. And I think, it just goes to show as well. And again, with all of these episodes we're talking about, usually the first season of a Star Trek series is rough. A wobble. Yeah, rough.
AKA TNG.
TNG Code of Honor. Move along home.
We don't speak of that on this podcast.
Voyager is a mess in the first season. So many of these shows are so bad, but obviously the original series is so strong from the very, very beginning. Like, as I say, Mud's Woman, which is so understandable why that's so low, is a standout there. I mean, like I've said it myself when I was doing a review of it. I genuinely think like the only other show to have almost as strong a first season was Starfleet Academy, but well, we know what the reaction was to that. So
again, review bombing, right? Like that's what I'm like. I understand how this works. Because I witnessed that.
Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but sometimes we don't have to share it.
We don't have to share it, and you should probably watch the episode to have an opinion.
Well,
because I think some of those probably did not, but yeah, it's funny because I'm going down the list, and like right after the Carbonite maneuver is the Menagerie.
Yeah.
And then they did The Conscience of the King, which is it's all right, and then Balance of Terror. So and then it went Shore Leave. So there's like,
it's such
again season, but because they produced it so all over the place, and then they threw it out there. I think that's why it's like that. But maybe they did that on purpose. Maybe they knew like this is going to be a good episode. This one's not. Let's try and balance it out. I don't know.
Again, I'm looking through it myself now. Like Balance of Terror, yeah, great. Shore Leave, the Galileo 7, like just like how have you like and then Space Seeds down there as well.
Arena though came after.
Yep, Spargothos, Arena,
Tomorrow's Yesterday, Court Martial.
I mean, if you look at the writers of each of these episodes, then you go like, yeah, that's why that one's good.
Right?
DC wrote that one. Okay, there we go. That's
why. Yeah, David. Yep. there it is. That'll do it. But I mean the side of paradise and then the devil in the dark, which, everyone,
Love that.
that I can't remember that creature's name, but I rooted for that mama. The Horta, yeah. I'm like, you go after them, you kill those people. And then of course, even in the first season, they had the City on the Edge of Forever, which that was the top of the entire season, 9.2.
Yeah, phenomenal
for
episode.
people.
I've written by Harlan Ellison as well. I forgot. Yeah, it's really, really great.
Yeah.
Thing. And it's crazy as well. It's like as you go on as well, like just coming back to sort of where No Man Goes before. I think one of the things that you've mentioned there was angry Spock.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because obviously what is Spock the character known for, Vulcans are known for, is the control of their emotions. And there is no control of emotions in this episode. Like he smirks when he beats Kirk. It's like he is very emotional all the way through. And even in his book, I Am Spock, he very much is like, I had no idea what I was doing in this episode. Like I was being emotional. Yeah. This was the thing. So it's really funny sort of seeing, especially if you watch The Man Trap and Charlie X, he's in control. He is that Vulcan that we know. Then you watch For No Man Goes Before and you're like, wait a minute. Why is he suddenly being all emotional?
What happened here?
Yeah. And then you go to the Naked Time and he's like, getting all angry.
He's controlling again.
Yeah.
But even going back to our little, production lift here, the Naked Time, Charlie X, and Man Trap, that's 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like so those first couple episodes, obviously he's trying to still figure it out. And then all of a sudden there it is. Right. But
and I wonder if that's, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if that's why The Man Trap was their decision to go, right, this is episode 5. This is the one that we filmed 5th. And this is why we're going to put it first, because this is the one that we feel they know their characters now. So we'll put that one first to get everyone to watch it. Charlie X, obviously, around that time. Now let's just slip in this one here.
The original pilot, yeah.
Yeah. And then but everyone's going like, wait a minute. These are not the characters we know. What's the uniforms doing here? Were all the uniforms in the laundry?
They're on shore leave. They're somewhere else.
Do you know what I love about this episode, though? Because I love how Star Trek 5 sort of almost ties into this episode as well. Because obviously you go to the Great Barrier, the edge of the universe makes you into a god, and if you go to the center of the universe and go through the Great Barrier, you meet God. So I love that dichotomy of the edge. Yeah.
The connections there are outstanding, right? Now, again, though, I think, as we're talking about the back and forth and trying to figure out and good Spock, bad Spock, all that stuff. But I think one thing that they were always able to do in every episode was that human aspect. And the one thing that I loved with the Doctor, where she was, fought Spock for a hot second of all, like, well, we have feelings. Yeah. And this is why I sense, because she has that ESP, that there really is no harm from him. But obviously she didn't know exactly what was going on. But I think she sensed Gary. Like, I think, and unfortunately for Gary, just like Kirk said, he didn't ask for this. This was not something he chose. He was just an unfortunate, innocent bystander as they were going through this, and he ended up losing his life for it. And I think she sensed that maybe Gary was trying to be in control of whatever had taken over. But it was those feelings and that human aspect at the very end, where even though Kirk was about to kill Gary, he's like, Gary, forgive me, before he was about to crush his skull in, which, crack up that Gates called it a shot put in the center seat, but because he got pushed back. But she sensed that fear. She sensed, she knew Gary's gone. Like, there is no Gary. And she was able to use her last ounce of humanity to stop whatever had taken over. And she sacrificed herself for it. So that was the one thing, except for Mutt's women, that they were very good on when it came to and maybe the Naked Time. I'm not saying they're perfect. They're still learning, okay?
Of course.
Still, like we were mentioning some of these episodes, because even in the Man Trap, it was McCoy.
Yeah.
and Kirk was like trying to be supportive, but felt something was going on. And we had that whole dynamic, and the Spock being Spock. And then even with Charlie X, I don't know. But again, that episode drives me nuts. I just felt like he was a spoiled child, and I was all like, just slap him in the universe. I don't care.
Yeah.
But again, Kirk was trying to be very father-like. He took him into the gymnasium or something and tried to help him out. So I think that was one of the main things that Gene was every time. Showcase that.
Agreed. Yeah.
But, in a different way that people weren't used to, which is probably why everyone was so into Star Trek, because it wasn't a Mission Impossible. It wasn't a Twilight Zone. It wasn't a Dick Van Dyke, like in the 60s and all that. So I think that's the one thing that we could say that was very consistent throughout, which still resonates 60 years.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And I think that's the core of like a lot of Star Trek is it's, when you try to distill what Star Trek is beyond the space travel and the technology and everything like that, it is what can you do when the best of when you tap into what is the best potential for humanity. And the best potential of humanity is that being aware of each other and being present for each other and working together and putting aside petty differences and squabbles and working for the greater good. And unfortunately, we're a very long way from that. But, in the Star Trek universe, we had to go through World War III before we learned that lesson. So, it's one of the things I think that's always been the truth. And I think everything you just said there, I wholeheartedly agree with. And I think that's one of the things that really sort of keeps me within Star Trek, keeps enjoying Star Trek, because it is when people are at their best. And their best is not, look how much I can bench, or being the best in your field or whatever. It's being the best person that you can be, the best of humanity that you can be. That is when things are not as difficult, and that's when we can overcome hardship and difficulties and save each other. So that's when Star Trek's at its best.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and actually jump into our penny for your thoughts.
Penny for your thoughts.
Okay, this first penny is an apology to my friend Abby, who over at First Flight Podcast, she had dropped a penny on my last episode with John Baker as we were talking about an Enterprise episode, Ceasefire, and I forgot to post it. But to go back, guys, if you hadn't seen that episode, it was 2 weeks ago. This is what she had to say. She said, I like that Ceasefire is another step on the path of building the Federation and deepens the relationship Archer has with Shran and Saval. It deepens all three men's understanding and respect for each other. Also, keep an open. This one cracks me up. Keep an eye open for Saval's socks as he walks into the conference room, which now I have to go back and watch that. Oh. But it's funny that she said that, how it says it deepens all the men's understanding and respect for each other, which I feel like we saw that in this episode with these characters. So this was kind of a perfect timing. Abby, you must have ESP because that's what you wrote and it worked perfectly. But the other pennies that I got, John, who was my guest for that day, says, I think what's interesting on a basic level is that Sally Kellerman's character is the ship's psychologist, foreshadowing the arrival of Deanna Troi decades later. And Mark from Threads says, it's a pretty good pilot episode. Thank you. I always find it a little weird rewatching this and the cage because of Spock's smile. So it's
yes,
emotional
Spock.
Emotional Spock. Like, he's all like, I don't like that very much, but okay, cool. But let's now jump into the tricorder rating.
By tricorder.
So I got 4 votes. Woo! Ooh. 2 people actually gave it a 5. 5 Delta Vegas. All right. 1 person gave it 4 telekinesis. And then 1 person did get it 3-dimensional chess. And then 0 for 2 Nightingale women and 1 neutron radiation. So where would you rate this episode?
Oh, I think I would go for the 4. Like, yeah, I think I'm on the 4 for this one. It's good. It's good. It's yeah.
The classic Trek episode.
Yeah, it's a good, again, just go back to your thoughts, the penny thoughts there. And as we've said, it's a good pilot episode. Like, I still don't, in terms of like production versus release order, I don't understand why it was released later on. If they'd started with this, it would have been, I think it still would have been a great start for Star Trek. It is very weird going back to watch it and being like, why is Spock so angry? Why is he smirking? Why is he doing all of this? But the core of the story, like the DNA of Star Trek is there in this episode, which is what makes it good. It makes it much better than Bud's Woman and Charlie X. But yeah, so no, but I don't. Again, it's not on the level of Balance of Terror, which I just think is just phenomenal. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for it being the first episode after The Cage, I think this is a very good Trek episode. This is a good, starting point for where they wanted to go, right? They were still
100%.
learning, they were still figuring it out. So I also give it a 4 because I think it definitely had the aspects of why we love Star Trek. And all of the different mystery and, the fighting and the pew-pews here and there, even though with the weird stuff with Spock and, putting down women, whatever, it's not perfect, but, it does have why Trek has lasted for 60 years. It was just the perfect episode to showcase that.
Yeah.
And so that's where I definitely agree. And, as we said, like Mud's Women and Charlie X and, even The Naked Time, like they were a little bit of fumblers, but they could still be fun and they still had moments that we could take, like as much as even The Naked Now is still kind of like, is a little much, but there are moments in those episodes that we could take from it. And except for Code of Honor. We will never speak of that episode.
Never talk about that.
Never talk about that. I know nothing. Okay. So, but you know what? Now let's go ahead and jump into my next episode, which is going to happen in September because I'm going to take August off because of STLV. But so I have no guest yet, but it's going to happen in September. And so this is where my sick bay spinner. All right, one lucky guest is going back to the Delta Quadrant with me. It's funny, none of my TNG or Prodigy episodes have been touched, so you guys are going to get hit with a lot of TNG and Prodigy at the very end of the season. That's okay. It's fine.
But Prodigy is so good.
I know. But I'm in no control of the spinner. The spinner has its own mind. But yes, we're going back to the Delta Quadrant with Collective, which I think is a fabulous episode of Voyager. So whoever decides to join me, we got to talk about those, amazing moments that had happened. And yeah, I guess we'll just jump into my redheaded list. All right, guys, the 4th anniversary of Crusher Convo is here, and I am ready to celebrate 60 years of Trek with 2 amazing geeks. Join Bill, Dan, and I as we talk about our top moments of Trek and what's to come at STLV. And of course, don't forget about my giveaway. Once I reach 1,000 followers on Instagram and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I will be giving away an autograph photo from Gates McFadden to one lucky listener. If you're enjoying my content, please help spread the word by sharing it with your friends. Every share brings me one step closer to reaching my goal. And of course, I love to hear your thoughts, so please submit your penny by recording a 60 to 90 second audio clip at crusherconvo.com, or you can email me your thoughts to crusherconvo@gmail.com, and I may feature your penny and share it live on the show. And last but not least, and my Patreon shoutouts go to Leslie, Dave, Grayson, and Elisa, who are my Commander patrons, and Chuck, Engineer Mark, and Johannes Borg, who are my Admiral patrons. If you would like to support the podcast and enjoy exclusive extra content, just head over to patreon.com/Crusher Convo, and you can sign up for as low as $3 a month. All right, Rick, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Just please let the listeners know where they could find you.
No, thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. Just like I love talking Star Trek, and that's the thing. I do talk a lot Star Trek. So there's a couple of places that you can find me. All social media, just search for my name, Rick Carranza. But if you follow me on YouTube, subscribe me on YouTube, I do a lot of videos about Star Trek on there. I've just got a 5 things series about the movies over there. I've done all 14 movies. Yes, we're counting one in there as well. I've done a 5 thing series. I'm about to release my rankings of all the movies as well, and I've got a couple of controversial decisions in there, so I'd love you to have a listen of that. The other thing that you can do is I have a podcast as well. So I'm a big Star Trek fan and I have children, so I'm making one of them watch Star Trek with me, and I'm capturing his thoughts on it as we watch the episodes and we're talking about it. He's 5 years old, so his thoughts are our 5-year-old's thoughts on Star Trek. They're brilliant. Have a listen into them. It's called My Next Generation. I say we're working our way through every episode of Star Trek. We've started with Star Trek Prodigy, which is phenomenal. It's if you haven't watched Star Trek Prodigy, you have been sleeping on this show. It is phenomenally good. It is essentially Voyager season 8 and 9. That's what it is. Sure. And it is so well done. And my little boy, I've asked him who his favorite character is, and he keeps telling me it's Rock, it's Dal. Do you know who gets most excited of when he sees them? It's Janeway. He loves Janeway. And I'm like, you're going to love Voyager. So, yeah.
He's going to be so stoked.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so excited for him. So you can listen to that on all podcast platforms of Rick Carranza, My Next Generation.
Awesome. I heard a clip of where you were talking with your little boy, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect. Because yes, 5-year-olds have just a 5-year-old mind and, very limited in their vocabulary and everything, but you can like absolutely feel the excitement from your son, and it's just that child wonder that, even everyone else had watching Star Trek when they were younger, and you get to hear it through your son. It is brilliant. Okay.
Oh, it's just beautiful sort of experiencing it all again. Because I think I must have been about 5 years old when I started watching, I became aware of Star Trek. So for me, it's like, if I turn around to him and say like, okay, we're going to watch Star Trek now, I say, yay, Star Trek. And I'm like, yes.
My husband got into Next Generation when he was 4.
Right.
And he saw it with his dad. What was hilarious, though, is that when he was 5, second season didn't have Crusher. It had Pulaski. And he remembers how devastated he was as a 5-year-old. Be like, who's this? Especially because Data was such his favorite character. And she was so mean to Data. He's like, I don't like the mean Data. Horrible to Data. But the 3rd season landed on his 6th birthday. It came out on the 25th. And so he was like, it was the best birthday present. Crusher was back. No Pulaski. And he remembers that moment. Doesn't remember anything else, but he remembers that moment. And it cracks me up. So, but yes, definitely check out his podcast. It is wonderful, and his YouTube channel. And of course, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, live long and prosper. Bye.
Crusher out.